You're walking through Strasbourg, Alsace, in the summer of 1518. A busy, wealthy trading city on the Rhine, but the mood underneath is rotten. Bad harvests, hunger, disease, fear, and a population trained to see disaster as punishment. Then, on a narrow street outside a half-timbered home, a woman remembered as Frau Troffea steps out and begins to dance. No festival, no music, no audience invited, just movement that doesn't look joyful, it looks trapped. Here's your first question. If you saw someone dancing like that for hours, would you watch or would you run? Because the people of Strasbourg watched, and within days, watching turned into copying, and copying turned into an outbreak. Troffea keeps going day after day, and the city starts collecting witnesses like tinder collects sparks. Neighbours claim they can't look away. Some feel a strange pull. And soon it's not one woman, but a growing knot of townspeople jerking, hopping, spinning, staggering, drenched in sweat, feet swelling, shoes darkening, bodies shaking with cramps and convulsions. Now lock in, because the most haunting part isn't that people danced. It's how the authorities reacted. You'd expect arrests, doctors, quarantine. Instead, Strasbourg's leaders decide the dancers are afflicted and must work it out, so they do something that sounds insane to modern ears. They authorize dancing. They open guild halls, clear spaces, and, according to multiple retellings based on city records and chronicles, set up a stage near the horse market and bring in musicians with pipes and drums to keep the motion going. Stop and feel that. The city is effectively turning a crisis into a controlled performance, because they believe the body has to exhaust the curse out of itself. And here's the retention hook. If their plan was wrong, they didn't just fail to stop it. They may have amplified it. By late July and into August, accounts describe the numbers climbing. Most modern summaries put it somewhere between about 50 and 400 people. And that spread isn't a small detail. It's the difference between a strange incident and a citywide nightmare. Imagine the soundscape. Not music of celebration, but music used like medicine. Not dancers smiling, but people pleading for rest. Not a crowd cheering, but families panicking because their father or sister can't stop. At the peak, some reports claim people collapsed from exhaustion. And later writers repeat claims of deaths from stroke, heart failure, or sheer physical breakdown. But the exact death toll is debated because the surviving records don't hand us a clean body count. And this is where the story becomes a medieval thriller. What do you do when your treatment is making the disease spread? Strasbourg pivots hard. The tone changes from dance it out to shut it down. Music and dancing get banned, and the city reaches for the one authority medieval Europe trusted when logic failed: religion. The dancers are pushed toward spiritual intervention, and in one widely repeated account, the remaining afflicted are taken on pilgrimage to a shrine of Saint Vitus in Zaben, modern Savon, because Saint Vitus, in popular belief, could both curse people with dancing and cure them of it. And then, as abruptly as it arrived, the epidemic fades by early September, leaving a question that has survived for 5 centuries. What force can seize a human body so completely that it overrides pain, thirst, and common sense? Now here's the twist that makes this more than a weird Strasbourg story. 1518 wasn't Europe's first dance disaster. There were earlier waves of what chroniclers called dancing mania, or choreomania, especially along the Rhine corridor, and one of the biggest eruptions began in Aachen in 1374, and spread through places like Cologne, regions of the Low Countries, and cities including Metz and Utrecht. A pattern that matters because it suggests this wasn't just one town going insane, but a recurring phenomenon that travelled through connected networks of trade routes, pilgrim roads, and rumour. So what actually caused it? Good, because the cause is the real clickbait engine here, and we're going to run the theories like suspects in a case file. and each suspect has a weapon, a motive, and an alibi. Suspect number 1. Poisoned grain, ergot, the fungus that can infect rye and cause convulsions, hallucinations, burning sensations, and terrifying neurological symptoms. It's the kind of explanation people love because it feels scientific and clean. They ate bad bread, their nerves broke, end of story. The problem is, ergot doesn't neatly produce weeks of synchronized dancing in large crowds the way chronicles describe it. And it doesn't explain why authorities believed dance it out was the correct cure. It also doesn't easily explain why outbreaks cluster and spread socially along regions and belief systems. Suspect number 2. Stress-driven mass psychogenic illness. The idea that extreme hardship plus a powerful cultural belief can make bodies express fear through the same scripted behavior. This is the explanation strongly argued by historian John Waller, and it fits the strangest detail of all. The epidemic didn't happen in a vacuum, it happened in a city primed by misery, famine pressure, disease, and deep religious anxiety, where people genuinely believed a saint could force them to dance. That belief is not decoration, it's the operating system. If you're taught from childhood that Saint Vitus punishes sinners by hijacking their legs, then your panic has a culturally acceptable shape to take. So here's the hook that keeps viewers to the end. What if the outbreak spread not like a virus, but like a story that hijacks bodies? The moment Strasbourg officials built a stage and hired music, they didn't just respond. They validated the script, turning private distress into public ritual. And in a tight medieval city, public ritual is gasoline. People gather, whisper, imitate, fear contagion, fear curses, fear being next, and ironically, that fear becomes the trigger. Think about Troffea again. If she began as one person in crisis, the city's reaction might have turned her into a signal flare. And if dozens joined, then every new dancer became a walking advertisement for the curse. It's real. It's here. It can take you. That's how mass episodes work. They don't need microbes to spread. They need attention, interpretation, and permission. Now let's make it even more vivid. Because your audience doesn't just need facts, they need images. Strasbourg's streets weren't wide modern boulevards. They were tight medieval lanes where sound echoes and crowds compress. A person dancing violently in that space is impossible to ignore. Add summer heat, dehydration, and fear, and you've built a pressure cooker. Some descriptions emphasize how dancers looked possessed. Blank expressions, flailing arms, spasms, bodies soaking wet, feet ruined. Details repeated because they shocked even hardened medieval observers. And here's another retention hook. Why didn't someone just hold them down? Because in the logic of the time, restraint could make it worse. If the curse was spiritual, you couldn't wrestle a saint out of someone's legs. You had to treat it with the right ritual. That's why the shift to the Saint Vitus shrine matters. It's the moment Strasbourg admits, our civic solutions failed. We need divine software. They take the afflicted to Zabern, Saverne, to beg for forgiveness, to be marked and prayed over, and the dancing finally breaks. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but did they really dance people to death? The honest answer is, some sources claim fatalities. Modern summaries repeat that some died from exhaustion or cardiac events, but the precise number is unclear. That uncertainty doesn't weaken the story. It makes it creepier because it shows what history often is. A few hard facts surrounded by human testimony, rumour, moral panic, and the fog of trauma. And yet the core is solid. Strasbourg experienced a real mass dancing episode in July-September 1518. Widely documented enough that serious reference works treat it as historical reality, even while debating the details. So let's land this with the most important question, the one that makes the video feel relevant. Could something like this happen now? Not the dancing specifically, but the mechanism, a stressed population, a powerful narrative, authority figures choosing the wrong treatment, and a behavior spreading because it becomes the accepted language of fear. That's why this medieval event refuses to die. It's not just a bizarre footnote. It's a warning about how humans behave when the world feels cursed. Strasbourg's leaders didn't wake up intending to create a stage for suffering. They followed the best model they had, and that model was built out of belief, tradition, and desperation. And here's the final hook to keep viewers glued until the last second. If Waller is right, then the dancing plague wasn't caused by a poison in bread. It was caused by something far more unsettling, something we still carry today, a mind that will choose any explanation it can survive, and a body that will obey that explanation even to the point of collapse. Now, if you want the next episode to hit even harder, tell me this in the comments. Do you think Strasbourg was poisoned or programmed? And what would you do if the people around you suddenly started moving like they couldn't stop?